Healthy mental practices with a kink shrink, but unfortunately she's recovering from COVID at the second, so please, if you wouldn't mind, leave some positive and supporting and get well soon messages in the comments section below, and send her your warmest thoughts, and have her in your prayers at this time. Just a quick reminder of the normal rules and conditions for healthy mental practices. What we'll be doing today is going across shortly to Clear on Consent in Kink from January 2020, the London recording, and that will run through to take us through for a replacement session, and hopefully, all being well, subject to health recovery, the Kink Shrink hopes to be back on Thursday the 6th of May, and please don't forget to subscribe to her channels and content for the latest updates.
Hello again from Affordable Leather Products. Well, as you may have heard, there's some great news if you come to visit us at the London Alternative Market, because the markets will be starting again very soon. And we have 5 of these LAM £5 discount vouchers to give away. To win one, all you need to do is subscribe to our YouTube channel and either leave a comment or make sure that your subscription is public so we can actually see who you are and know that you subscribe to our channel. Just visit our website at affordableleather.co.uk and click on the link that says come and visit our YouTube channel. Once we reach 100 subscribers, we'll draw the 5 lucky winners, and you can use the vouchers as a discount off any purchase at a London alternative market, or to get yourself a free entry to the market instead if you prefer. Whichever you do, we hope we see you soon and we look forward to your custom. Visit our new, revised and updated website at www.affordableleather.co.uk.
It's your birthday. Happy birthday. It's your birthday. Happy birthday. It's a great day. That's what we say. Happy birthday.
Party time. Hello everybody, here we are again, another Sunday afternoon, and guess what? 6 days to go till Lamb and Rams on the Farm, first gig of the year, and yep, thoroughly excited, and I hope many of you are as well. And if you can't make that one, don't be too sad, because the week after is the Lamb's Spring Fete in Bedfordshire, and there's plenty more exciting things coming up after that. So if you hang on till 4:15, which will undoubtedly be enjoyable for you anyway, there will be more news, so hang on in there for that. Anyway, this week we're back on one of a very perennially popular topic, vampires. I was going to put my fangs in, but because I have a pair of lovely custom fangs, but I can't talk properly in them. It's all which isn't terribly erotic. You know, you wouldn't really catch Count Dracula or Jean-Claude or whoever. Probably not even Edward's sparkle pants spits and slobbers when he's trying to pull. And I hope you don't either, because it's not appealing. Anyway, here I am with my little friend Vladis the Vampire, who some of you might recognise, who sits on my stall. And he's getting all excited over coming out to play again, aren't you, Vladis? Yes! Okay, that's enough of that. I have a guest author this week, who is my pal Violet Fenn, who is a writer some of you might know. She's going to kill me for saying this, but one of her most famous pieces was about using an alien egg ovipositor sex toy and writing about it in the Metro. So, Violet, yeah, that one's going to live forever, just like a vampire. Anyway, Violet's written a fabulous book about the history of the vampire in popular culture, which includes why people find vampires sexy, and mention even of one of my top-selling lines, In Blood We Lust, the absolutely filthy hardcore vampire porn book. I do have a few other vampy stories occasionally, Black Lipstick Kisses, which is kind of goth vampire erotic romance, and this one, Vampire Desire, which is one of the 90s classics put out by New English Library, this one was. Anyway, Vampire Filth. And Violet's book will be coming into stock very soon. It is called Love at First Bite. I hope I've got that right. A History of the Vampire in Popular Culture. So what I'm going to do is a quick slideshow featuring vampire stuff, well, vampire books and bits about Violet. She also wrote a terrific history of Victorian sexuality, which is in stock, and if you want to know about Victorian naughty goings-on, drop us a line, get in touch, www.dirtysexywords.com. There's a contact form on the site, so you can just give me a yell that way, or you can just look on the website where the Victorian sex book by Violet Fenn is in stock. The vampire book by her is going to be in stock pretty soon. I don't know if I'll have it by Lamb and Rams on the Farm. I'll certainly have it by the end of the month. So hopefully for our little trip to Bedfordshire. Without any more whittering and twittering, I will hand over via the slideshow to Violet Fenn with her book about vampires.
Hi, so I'm going to read a short excerpt from my latest book, which is A History of the Vampire in Popular Culture. And it's a history, not the history, because everybody has their own ideas about their views on anything like this. There's no point trying to make a definitive history. This book is so new that I don't actually have my own copy yet, so you have to excuse me reading from a Kindle. And as it's 2021 and we're still mid-pandemic, I am recording this in my bedroom with my friend Crow Jane overseeing this. So Yeah, so I've taken a small chapter from the introduction section about the background to why people love vampires. Perhaps our love of vampires is in itself a type of kink, a form of power play in which we as humans get to play the outwardly unwilling submissive, who is, if truth be told, thoroughly excited by the situation. Many of the earlier vampire tales in the English language were written by those such as Polidori, who had attended private boarding school and were all too aware of the pain that could be inflicted, with no fear of retribution by masters displeased by their young charges. No wonder then that some of these grew up with mixed feelings about pain and pleasure. For modern readers and viewers, there's also the attraction of going back to a simpler time, one in which all that matters is life and death. One's mind is sharper and more focused when the only thing to worry about is which pathetic victim to choose next. With less to fear from the world around them, even modern vampires as portrayed in films and books are usually free of the worries that drag the rest of us down on a daily level. Being immortal frees one from the worries of paying bills or holding down a job. The assumption is that you've been around long enough to either amass a fortune of your own or have inherited it from a succession of mortal companions. Although not unheard of, it's rare to see vampires portrayed as anything other than wealthy and charismatic, wafting round the houses of our dreams and perfectly dressed at all times. When 50 Shades of Grey turned Twilight's Edward Cullen from a high school vampire into a high-rolling businessman, his instinctive desires didn't abate in the slightest. He simply moved them directly into the Red Room. It's rather ironic that Edward had to be converted back into a mortal before he could really let his inner feelings flow. Blood is, of course, the essential life force. If we lose our blood, we lose our lives. Giving blood is a selfless act in which we pass our strength on to those who are in greater need of it. Allowing someone or something to take our blood is an act of trust and intimacy. Even when carried out in a sterilised, white-painted blood donation centre, there's something almost primal about allowing another person to draw out our very essence, regardless of how clinical the conditions. Now transpose that situation into a rather more intimate one. Instead of sitting on a white clean couch in a clinic, you are instead in close proximity to somebody you find deeply physically and sexually attractive. When they move in for that romantic clinch, it's natural to offer one's neck. After all, it's one of the most sensitive parts of the body. The attentions of someone who's an adept neck nibbler can be one of the most shiver-inducing feelings in existence. The neck contains the jugular vein. Excuse me, mispronouncing some of this. I'm getting very tired of trying to work on Zoom at the moment. The neck contains the jugular vein and is therefore one of the most vulnerable parts of the body. Predators go for the throat precisely because it's the quickest and easiest way to bring down their prey. Bearing one's throat can be the ultimate act of submissiveness, an idea which many find arousing. John Payne's 1878 poem Lautrec references the vulnerability of the throat from the vampire's perspective. This particular vampire is the mortal Lautrec's female lover. This is just an excerpt from Lautrec. It's incredibly long. And more especially my sight sate on the glory of his throat. With fondling fingers I did note the part where it was left milk white and that whereon the full sun smote. All suddenly my parched lips clave to Lautrec's throat, and in the scar that did its fair perfection mar, so fiercely delved that like a wave the bright blood spouted fast and far. An arch of crimson, still he slept, for over all the night was strewn the cursed enchantments of the moon, and as the hot blood through me swept, my sense shook off its leaden swoon, and with parched throat I drank my fill of that fell stream. Then, as I stayed my awful hunger undismayed, there rose within me higher still that horrid gladness, and there played full streams of fire through every vein. The darkling majesty of hell within my breast did surge and swell. The infernal rapture brimmed my brain with ecstasy ineffable. Despite seeming rather tame to modern eyes and perhaps even clunky in places, Payne's lengthy work, at almost 200 stanzas long, it takes some dedication to get through the entire thing, caused quite a stir at the time. Having been sent a review copy, Rossetti wrote to his friend William Davis, "Do you know Mr. John Payne, and have you seen his tasteful poem, which is called Lautrec, but might be called The Anatomy of Vampirism? I've received a copy but couldn't read it for the horrors, and I really don't know what to say to it. What's clear that even in the early days of what might be considered modern popular culture, the intimacy and power struggle involved in the exchange of bodily fluids was already being given quite some thought. Sex is power, and power is inevitably fought over. So when the two become entwined, or worse still, are in the possession of one's enemies, they provoke the strongest of reactions. The mere thought of someone else having sexual power can be intimidating to those who would oppose it. Through centuries of mostly patriarchal society, power has been fought for and held by men. So when women show that they too possess power, they're seen as a threat. Throughout long tranches of history, women have not been afforded the same education as that available to men. There's always been a sliver of fear running through the male section of society, a fear that if women were properly educated, they may just become a threat to male dominance. So that's an excerpt from A History of the Vampire in Popular Culture. Thank you so much for listening, and for giving me the opportunity to read it to you. And from me and Crow-J, bye.
Excellent stuff, wasn't it? Hope you're looking forward to reading more. I've read the whole book. It's brilliant. And like I say, I'll have it in stock soon. In the meantime, less than a week till we're down on the farm. Looking forward to seeing you. So, if I don't see you in person, we'll be here online. There will be a LAM live stream on Sunday the 18th. I have been assured. And see you maybe next week, the week after. Lots of times in the future. Here comes the summer. Bye-bye.
It's your birthday. Happy birthday. It's your birthday. Happy birthday. It's a great day. That's what we say. Happy birthday to you.
Hi, Graham from Affordable Leather Products here. In this video I'm just going to talk about one item from our range of bondage and BDSM gear, but it's a very special product. If you like strap-on play or pegging and you like your toys big, no, bigger than that, yes, that big, then you need a harness that's going to be able to deal with not only the size but the weight of the dildo you're using. Most strap-on harnesses are okay for small toys, but when it comes to the bigger ones they can't support them properly, or the dildo will fall out as its weight pulls it through the hole or the ring in the harness. So we've designed a harness which can take the biggest toys around for the ultimate in pegging action. Our giant strap-on dildo harnesses are custom made to your measurements and to fit the largest toy you'll want to use with it. This is one we've just made for a customer, and it's the biggest one ever, taking the Mr. Hanky Ogre 4XL dildo that's over 5 1/3 inches or 13.5 centimeters in diameter. Unfortunately we don't have the toy itself to demonstrate in the harness, but first of all you unbuckle the side straps to allow yourself to step into the harness. Then you put the toy through the hole in the front panel and buckle up the restraining strap to hold it in place. Once you've done that, you fasten the adjustable waist straps and secure it to your body. This harness is made from 2.6 to 2.8 mil thick belting leather for strength and has a 4-inch or 10 centimeter wide back belt for support. This version also has the comfort option, which has soft edging stitched along each edge of the harness and on the back belt to stop it digging into you. Plus it has soft padding on the crotch strap to reduce any uncomfortable pressure on sensitive parts of the anatomy. The design of the harness allows you to use smaller size toys than the maximum size that it's designed for, And obviously you don't need to use a dildo as big as the one this harness will take, since we can make it for whatever size you want. But if you want to use it for a wide range of toy sizes, we can provide extra front panels which you can swap between. The giant dildo harness is for those who take their strap-on play seriously, and it will give you, or your subject, a lot of pleasure for many years to come. You can see it and our whole range of leather and metal bondage and BDSM toys on our website at affordable-leather.co.uk.
Hi there. If you're sceptical about life coaching, I completely understand. I used to wonder who on earth would ever go for life coaching. I mean, life's easy, right? You get up, you try and earn enough money to pay the bills. If you're lucky, you see some friends and then you go to bed. If you need to see a life coach, you must be really failing hard at something, which means more guilt and more shame. Then I took a comedy show to the Edinburgh Festival about my guilt and shame, and afterwards some of those people who saw it asked if I would coach them, so I got some training in it, and to pass the course we had to be coached ourselves. Really annoyingly, I have to admit that it worked. During my own coaching sessions we looked at some of the negative thoughts that kept me awake at night, my attitude towards money, which I thought was fine, but that filled a whole hour, whether or not having empathy meant that I could stand up for myself, and some new ways of looking at domestic arguments and my own family relationships. In coaching other people, I've seen my clients discover they had a direction when they didn't think they had one, create a video for a Kickstarter project that more than made its target, accept their adult dyslexia, be kinder to themselves, find their voice and become happier. So look, if you're completely happy with your life, I am really pleased for you and I hope we get to hang out socially. But if there's any part of you that would like to think or behave differently, then do get in touch. My contact details are below, or you can check out www.johnpendle.com. And for everyone watching, I hope you have a really wonderful day. Thank you. So writing this show, I tried to think back to the very first time in my life I was ever tied up. And it was a pivotal moment in my life. I was 7 years old, and it was a family beach holiday in Wales in the 1970s. There's never been anything wrong with that decade, has there? Now there were 2 or 3 dozen families on the beach, and an evangelical missionary team came and rounded up a load of unattended children, took us down the other end of the beach to tell us about Jesus. Where were my parents? The story gets better because the leader of the missionary team picked me out wearing just my little swimming costume to sit on a chair in front of all the other kids. And then he produced a reel of cotton thread and for a demonstration how without Jesus we could be trapped in a life of sin. This actually happened. So he wound it once round me in the chair and asked if I could break the thread with just my tummy muscles, and I could. And then he wound it a couple more times round me in the chair, asked if I could still break it with my tummy, bit harder, still could. Looking back, that was a very weird thing for him. What was his morning routine? Got my keys, got my wallet, got my cotton bobbin. Right, off to the beach to find me some children. So then we had a competition to find out how many times he could wind it around me in the chair until I couldn't break free. Now he wanted this to be a lesson, a metaphor for all the kids, where the thread was all the things we've done wrong in our lives, and my tummy was the redemptive power. But you'll never guess what. You'll never guess what. I learned a very different lesson that day. I learned if somebody ties you up and you can't get out, they're in control. But if somebody ties you up and you know you can get out, you're in control. And given the choice, I prefer to be in control. Even if in my adult life it's the wispy illusion of control provided by a very detailed to-do list. You may have your parties and social lives, but what could be more satisfying than waking up of a morning, opening the curtains and knowing you've already achieved 2 things you can cross off your list for that day. Thus, my interest in escaping from stuff was born. Jesus will set you free. But I later discovered so will a paperclip and a fork. In my 20s, I met a man who wanted to put his bibbly bobbly bits into my mouth. Now I was fine with this, just one little wrinkle. His cock was the diameter of a Coke can. Wouldn't go in. What the hell do you want me to do with this? Gnaw on it like a kebab? Happened to you. He was hot and I was young and stupid, so we decided to let it go down and just pop it in soft and see what would happen. Now, I don't know if you've ever tried to inflate a bouncy castle. Inside a Mini Cooper. There was an awful lot of teeth. And suspiciously, an unusual amount of jawache. So we decided to call it a night. Now the next morning, I was having a shave, because I was young, clean shaven back then. I was doing that thing where you stretch your jaw from side to side, so that you can do the skin. And there was a huge cracking sound. And my flatmate ran in from another room to the bathroom and went, "What was that sound?" To find me rolling around on the floor going, "I think it was my dignity going back." That's when I realised a very important life lesson. I'm not a snake.
Party time.
And then one day somebody came up afterwards and asked if I would teach how to escape at an event in America. See, in North America, they seem to have these weekend conferences where they'll pay presenters their flight and their hotel to teach an unusual hobby. And the first time I got booked, I was so proud of my little self, having all expenses paid trip to America. I couldn't wait to get to the head of the queue at passport control and tell them the purpose of my visit. Don't do this. Oh my God, what was I thinking? I was thinking, just tell the truth. It's autism in me. He's asked a question, tell the truth. No, he has a gun, shut the fuck up. So I got to the head of the line at passport control. He said, purpose of your visit? Oh, I'm here to teach people how to escape from stuff. Never say that. This huge bear of a man stood up in his booth with his mace and his handcuffs, and he leaned over the side and he looked me up and down. He went, if I put my handcuffs on you, could you get out of them? And I had that little cold trickle of fear that only an English person who's done something stupid in an armed border ever gets. And I had a really quick think and I said, I could if they were European ones, but American ones are too well made. And he stamped my passport and let me in. And it's really easy. If you're confused, how do you get consent? Add 2 words to the start of any sentence involving somebody else. May I? So if I want to do a fist bump, may I? Boom, I've got consent. Simple as that, half a second. Now, after one show, a guy came up and went, but how do I send unsolicited dick pics to women? If I have to ask for consent and they're not unsolicited, I've got an answer for you there, mate. Right, there are forums online where there are women with their contact details who want unsolicited dick pics. Send away. Although I do have to warn you, quite a lot of those women are men.
It's your birthday. Happy birthday. It's your birthday. Happy birthday. It's a great day. That's what we say. Happy birthday.
I'm really annoyed, this pisses me off, when there's like a mainstream film or a really best-selling book comes out and you read it and you're quite happy, you close it, you're done, and then afterwards the author, J.K. Rowling, goes, oh, by the way, Dumbledore was gay. Don't tell me after the fact. That doesn't help any child growing up feeling alone that they're gay. Right, if you want Dumbledore to be gay, the next time he says Expelliarmus in print, I want something zipping out of somebody's arse. Like, just actually show us in the book. Don't do it in a tweet.
If my church wanted me to be straight, they should have given me the top 3 reasons, you know, the benefits of being straight. And I've really tried. help me out here. Like the three I've come up with, but you've got to give me some better ones at the bar. You have the support of religious institutions. Right. You're not made to go for weekly counselling to try and change your sexuality. And you're not blamed whenever there's floods.
My church, believe it or not, was worse because they believed in abstinence, which is not a really fun kind of alcohol. No. It turns out abstinence is not doing it at all. And my church had some very creative ways to get us not to do it. My church's sex education was one sentence, just one. This is what they told us the week we learned about sex. If you don't have a particular body part yourself, you are not allowed to touch it on other people. Bad news for all the other kids worked out very well for me. They had not thought that through. No way, no how.
Are you a superhero? Are you fighting injustice in this world? Do you want to kick COVID's butt? Then grab a mask to outlast this pandemic. If you're into the themes of punk, fetish, gender fuckery or neurodiversity, this is for you. Come, join the other misfits, freaks and weirdos and celebrate your own unique expression!
In England, we really only discovered gluten-free cake about 3 years ago. Yeah, it's in every coffee shop now. But they didn't invent it for me. They didn't invent it for medically diagnosed people. They invented it for people doing gluten-free as a detox. Because that's what you need on a detox, isn't it? Fucking cake. Not every coffee shop, though. I went in a coffee shop recently. They had beautiful cakes on the counter. I said, are any of these gluten-free? They said, yes. We have granola. Oh. Tell me, I don't know how you do that. How do you make granola with no wheat, rye, barley or oats? And do you know what they said to me? Oh, are you one of the real ones? Then we have nothing for you. I phoned and told them the conclusion I'd come to. They promptly kicked me out, which was a bit of a blessing in disguise. But now I just want to go back and tell them how much easier it is going out with another fella. Because men, we are such simple creatures. We only have 3 states of being. Hungry, horny and sleepy. Which, coincidentally, are 3 of the names of the gay 7 dwarfs. The full list being hungry, horny, sleepy, bitchy, butch, camp and hypoallergenic. Now that first night I also learned something else, which was they were very hot on the idea of safe words. Right, for those of you who don't know, it's a word or phrase you agree up front, and then if it all gets a bit much, if the clamps are too tight, you can say, Theresa May, and everybody stops. Little tip from me, make sure it's something easy to remember. Otherwise you're in a whole heap of trouble. Now, it became like a handshake, you know, when you met somebody, oh, what's your safe word? And that's how we all operated. But years later, I've discovered that's absolute rubbish, because the very best safe words you know, the ones that work every time, are never agreed in advance. This one's particularly effective. Uh-oh. Picture the scene. One of you is putting ping pong balls in a piping bag. We've all been there. The other one's winding up a Van de Graaff generator. One of you says, uh-oh, nobody moves till we work out what's going on. Another one that works really well is whoops. Oh shit, is this deep heat or mayonnaise? Whoops. Open up, it's the police. You're back early, Mum. One that works really well in our house is, oh my God, there's a cat in the room! I swear to you, they can teleport. It doesn't matter how firmly you shut the door. Halfway through, they'll be purring approval on a pillow. I don't care how cute and furry you are, you're not coming near my balls if you've got teeth and claws.
Hi, Debbie Spank here. I've been asked to do a podcast on a little bit of history of Spank. Yeah, before I start, I'd like to say that I'm really missing everybody and missing Lamb, and I hope you're all keeping safe and well. Yeah, firstly, the name Spank. I think I'll leave that to your imagination of why I would have called it that. Yeah, I started the business in 1986. I was working as a manageress in Oxford Street, Jean Genie, and I was really had a passion for fashion, and I just started making little things like earrings for curtain rings, and I used to customize things from I picked up from Oxfam, and people really liked my creations. So I decided to get a little market stall in Camden. And it was difficult, yeah, because I was working full-time in Oxford Street and also trying to make stuff and working weekends and evenings, and eventually I decided to take a chance and give up my full-time job, which was a big shock to the system, because I was sitting in a bed in Brixton trying to make clothes, which wasn't an easy task, I must say. Yeah, I think I really decided that my best part of my business was me designing and selling. So I decided to try and get outworkers, machinists, to help with the actual making. I remember the first day in Camden I did it. It was like snowing, and I took £5. But yeah, I persisted and things did get better. So I took on another stall in Camden Market up in the stables. So I had two stalls. I had someone working for me. And at the time I was, it was more tie-dyes, my earlier designs. And I used to make flared sleeve tops, and I used to sew motifs on the front. And then I used to tie-dye them. I started, yeah, they sold really well. And I started doing the Festi circuit, Glastonbury, Reading, all of those festivals. And things were going really well. I thought, as I'm talking, I'd put up a few of my old creations through the years, Spank designs. As you can see, it's going to change quite a lot up until where we are today. This is my shop in Camden. Yeah, as you can see, it's kind of like it's going a bit cyber club wear, and still got my tie-dyes there. I also took on two stalls in Kensington Market. One was up on the first floor next to Red Bulls on Fire, an excellent glam rock designer from Los Angeles. Yeah, we used to get a lot of people coming in. Alice Cooper used to hang out, and Robert Smith from The Cure. And yeah, I'm going to do a bit of name dropping now. I had Debbie Harry came to my shop, and Kylie Minogue came to my shop. I must say, when I was in Camden Market, it was about 87, I think, Madonna's agent came in and brought a pair of orange hot pants, crushed velvet, I'll never forget it, because Hanky Spanky came out about the same time as I called my business Spank, which was really convenient. Anyway, I'm just going off those subjects. Yeah, so where was I? Actually, while I'm on that subject, when I was in the shop in Camden Market. It was in the Stables Market. It had 2 floors. It was quite a big shop. This guy came in at the end of the day, and he said he was going on tour with The Cure. His name was Paul. He was the bass player, and he ended up buying a lot of outfits. Here are some of the pictures of my shop and some of the outfits I was doing then. And he spent £800, which was great. But I should have took some pictures, but hey, I never even asked for his autograph. Silly woman. But yeah, that's my claim to fame. Anyway, I'm still actually making a few things for friends in bands. Here's a picture of Raymond from Pig, and he's a couple of outfits I made for him for his tour in America and Japan. I will say, I was one point in my life that I thought I should franchise the business because I thought it would make it easier. But so many of my customers said, oh no, please, you'll just sell out. Your stuff is so individual, and that's great. So don't mass market it. But it would have been easier for me, and it would have made more money. But I don't think it's all about money anyway. I think in this business, or any business, you've either got to be very big or small. I don't think there's anything in the middle because of the VAT and all that, which I've struggled with when I did once go there. But I think it's better to keep small now. Anyway, back to my story. When eventually Kensington Market sadly closed down, and Camden Market became very mainstream, I decided to pull out. So that was when I was thinking, where am I going to go now? So I came across London Alternative Market, which was perfect for where I was going with my designing. Yeah, what do I enjoy about my job most? That's another question. I think probably the happiness that I can see in people's faces when a customer comes in, and there may be big ladies, small ladies, or have issues with their bodies, like I'm sure we all do. And they walk out and they're really feeling sexy in the clothes, and men as well. I do a lot of men's clothes, really into men's clothes at the moment, getting new designs all the time. But yeah, the selling, I don't push, but I love to see people happy with the purchase and the designing. I love the designing. Just that sometimes you get so many in your head and it's too much. You just can't get it all out there. What's the best feedback I've received? I would say probably the hugs I've had from ladies and men that have come into my stall and been so happy and said that you made my day because I went out and I felt really happy and felt really confident. I would say that's, I've even had tears from customers sometimes, which is beautiful, I think. Anyway, I think I've answered all the questions, and I'm showing you lots of pictures of all the clothes through the years of Spank. I will just say one thing, that when I eventually did give up my job, which was 1986, my mother said, no, don't give it up. But you know, in retrospect, I'm very pleased I did. I know I was a bit of a high flyer with managing and going around the country and troubleshooting. But, you know, I would encourage anybody to take a chance. It's hard work. It's really hard work. Maybe that's why I never got married or had kids, because it's been my baby. But it's been worth it. Anyway, guys, I think I better close there. I'm really looking forward to seeing you all again. And I hope you're all keeping really well and safe. It's not an easy time, I must admit, but things can only get better, eh? Much love to all. Bye. Oh, and I've forgotten the most important thing. Where you can find me and buy my lovely wares. www.spankonline.co.uk. Yeah, please check out my website, and yeah, any queries, any questions, don't hesitate to get hold of me. Okay, guys, see you soon. Bye.
got into making stuff when I was a kid with my grandma. Some of my best memories from my childhood, really, to be honest. I suppose just being a little, enjoy making stuff for other littles. I have the most amazing workroom at home that has Hello Kitty wallpaper, and it is totally my happy space. I love making special orders. Something different is always great. Had some awesome ones, jingly pumpkins, patchwork coats, all sorts of things. They're always fun.
Book blurb time. How to Make Your First BDSM Scene Amazing by Sharon Burns. This book is for new dominant women who are anticipating their first BDSM scene. It's an exciting time, but it can also be nerve-wracking because first times can be scary. The 13 simple steps in this guide will help with that. A short, sharp guide will take some of the pressure off with practical, actionable steps that will help you feel more confident the first or second or third time you play. And it contains a free BDSM scene planner. Book blurb. This is Inked, first published by Sexy Little Pages, now by Sincere Publishing. Inked Tattoo Erotica. Tattoos are personal, and the act of tattooing is deeply intimate. This collection revels in all manner of ink, from the first-time jitters of company ink, to the promise of ritual submission in Commitment, to galaxy-spanning adventure in the Voronkali Emperor's new clothes. Inked will have you squirming in your seat. Venomous ink. Sometimes lust gets deep under your skin. Uncovering Heather. Opposites do so much more than attract. Her Midnight Roses. The ultimate dom looks to get what he deserves. Embody. Some magic markers are more permanent than others. 9 Lives. A top tattoo artist has never forgotten one particular customer. She yearns to uncover his strange secret. Then it tells you who wrote what. Another book blurb. How to Be Naughty by Morpheus. Whether you're a certified rope obsessive or you've only just mastered the basics of bondage, How to Be Naughty, the essential guide to modern rope bondage, will give you all the skills, confidence and inspiration necessary to make your next move into the exciting world of intermediate rope bondage, where erotic restraint merges with living art. From easy chest, arm and leg ties and modified classics like the Spread Eagle, all the way to full body harnesses and modern takes on the futo and the hog tie, Morpheus' accessible style and instructive and hot exclusive photos will show you, step by step, just how to advance your tying skills and take your grateful bunnies to subspace and back.
To exploring kink. So within this workshop we're going to cover a little bit about what kink is, what it's about, some good advice for those new to exploring kink, some additional resources, quick discussion on different types of events, some final words of advice, and at the end of the day, while this is very much aimed to new people, it's also probably a good orientation for those who may be out of practice because of global pandemics or things of that kind of nature. So ultimately, what is kink? Well, it's a very broad subject area, but it's also a spectrum of activities. It doesn't really matter if you pick an orientation such as dominant or submissive, or a focused activity such as bondage. Everyone will have a level of interest in that. We all sit somewhere on that spectrum, and you're either going to be at the very far left of the curve with little interest in the activity and therefore one of the minority who don't engage. As it moves further towards the right, the population density will increase and people will be more into it, but obviously there reaches a point where not everyone is going to be into a subject matter, and some people will choose to be more dedicated, more devoted to reach that more professional level, and those numbers will reduce as you move across to it. So we all have to look at this and understand where we sit in relation to others, in relation to the activities, in relation to the various activities that make up kink. Because at the end of the day, we're talking about a very broad church of activities. We're not talking about things that everyone will necessarily, oh my god, I'm kinky, therefore, oh yes, I absolutely must do that on a regular basis, because we're all individuals. We all have individual needs, drivers, things that float our boat, things that don't float our boat, things that interest us, things that don't interest us. And quite often kink is about navigating and finding the people within that amorphous cloud that are kind of your tribe, the people who are looking for the same thing as you. And that really leads me on to kind of a map, and one of the classic ones is the lands of human sexuality. And at the end of the day, if you look at an activity and drill down, you will see that there are certain activities that are encompass, say, DS activity, domination and submission, power exchange based relationships, that will have all manner of things that will fold in and wrap around that. So don't think that you just have to be into everything or even everything within a subgroup and catchment. It's very much about exploring and finding what you are interested in. And to that extent, you can use things like checklists to communicate. There are various online BDSM tests, and even a number of psychometric profiling methods will indicate. But part of that is also we have our own language, because we are also a community in its own right. So part of getting to grips of things is to understand some of the acronyms. SSC, safe, sane and consensual. RAC, risk aware, consensual kink. Your kink is okay, but it's not my kink. Because at the end of the day, you have to get to a stage where you can accept other people's differences to really integrate and get the most out of this. And one of my personal favourites, ethical, responsible, consenting adults, because to me that encompasses everything. We have to be ethical with our interactions. We have to be responsible for ourselves and the others that we're playing with. Obviously it has to be consenting, and ultimately we have to be adults, not only in what we engage in, but how we conduct ourselves. So the landscape is a lot more complex, and it can take people some time to get used to and comfortable with this. So the next stage of this project was really to also talk to some of the other people around me and get some of their advice as well. And one of the names that will come up with new people, I hope on a regular basis, is the Kink Shrink, who is a experienced lifestyle submissive, as well as being an experienced and qualified therapist with tens of thousands of hours in her clinic, but also significant numbers of hours of supervision that goes along with that as well. Prolific writer on all aspects of kink, practically one of the top panic attack professionals out there, has been working with us with healthy mental practices sessions for about the last 4 years with LAM. And one of the recent workshops, I asked her to specifically focus on what are some of the things that you would say to newbies. Now I must apologise in this, the sound went a little bit wobbly part way through, but at the end of the day, the bits where I'm silent, well, just work your way through those, because it's what she has to say that is far more important than the content I contribute to this particular one.
So let's start with new people, maybe, to dominance as a dom or a domme or a top or anything else as well. So we're going to talk about them, and we're going to talk about having a new sub. I think it's interesting when it comes to experience. I'm a very experienced sub. If I have a very inexperienced dom, I've got to watch that, because I could really start to bottom top from the bottom. I've got to be very careful. No, that's not right. You haven't done that right. All sorts of things. So experience varies on both ends, and it takes a lot of negotiation. So the first thing I'm going to say to anyone who's new to this, get to workshops. Start looking around. First of all, however, don't just pick up a flogger and think, or a sticky hitty thing, or a ming stick, or a silice, or a fucking cricket ball. Don't start with that shit. Start with the basics. Start to look at safety. Please know your physiology. Understand that if you're going to play with somebody, you could actually end up cutting them, hurting them, doing things to them. Do you know how to deal with it when you do? What's your basic first aid like? I'm even going to go, can you resuscitate? Do you have that level of first aid? So please get your first aid training sorted. I really understand for most of you that will never come into it. So we say, and then as soon as we get more and more used to things, as things carry on, we go, oh, I want to try a bit of that. Oh, I want to try a bit of that. Oh, I want to try a bit of that. And all of a sudden, we're slicing people open, performing open heart surgery, and near enough killing them and having to resuscitate them. That clearly is not true. I'm taking the piss. However, please.
Remember, I've got an operating table.
Or dentistry. Some people are into dentistry. Don't play with fillings. Have you any idea how much that shit hurts? Right, so please be aware of what you're doing. Understand anatomy. That's the next one. So once you understand how to resuscitate someone, please understand some basic anatomy. Why?
because it really fucking matters when you hit someone. It really fucking matters about the amount of damage that you're going to do in a certain area. So at the moment, I'm just concentrating on some physical basics. So please start to get to know your anatomy. Where can you do these things? Oh my God, there are so many classes out there. There are workshops for free. There is a sub on Instagram. She's very popular. I've forgotten her name for some reason. It's gone out my head. I know Kim Rubb does them, but they're all chargeable. So lots of people will charge for these courses. There are plenty of people that don't. For example, at LAM, we've definitely done a physiology workshop.
The first of the LAM Lives was a physiology workshop.
Yeah, and we've had like a first aid workshop, and we've done a lot of stuff like that. So it's around if you want to look for it. It's around on YouTube. The other thing I'm going to say to you, please bear in mind that just because somebody says they're submissive or a dominant, A, doesn't give them any credentials, any qualifications, and it's just them touting their own experience. So please be careful who you go to. When, do some research and find out. I have a little bit of a problem with somebody who's done 20 years of subbing, putting quite an expensive course online just because they've got a shit ton of followers and charging a fortune to actually do it. Okay, but what are your qualifications? Experience, but good experience? How do we define good experience? How do we define what they're good at? So look around, be careful. There are plenty of free workshops on offer. FetLife will show you loads at the moment. But start with your basics, start with your first aid, start with your basic anatomy. There are certain areas of the body that we shouldn't really go for as much as others. And whatever you do, don't have a whisk in your toy cabinet in any way, shape or form. I haven't told that story for ages. Whisks don't belong inside people, especially with coils. A fool with 2,000 followers is still a fool, says King Cat. I agree. So just be careful about the things that you're using and where and how. Learn how to take a form or a tally or a response and an understanding of where the person is medically and with their mental health. That's one of the next things to learn. What are you into? What do you like? So you can get absolutely free of charge on the internet, loads and loads of kink type sheets that give you all the sort of things that people practice. And you can say, have you done it before? Are you experienced? How much do you like it? Score out of 5. They're really good. Those kind of kink sheets that tell you what someone's into. Want to try this, don't want to try it. Not irrelevant. So we can do those as well. They're really helpful. So have a look at sheets, have a look at the things that you can look up and you can share with each other. And this is really fucking boring, isn't it? Because this is before we've got cock and ball torture or tit torture, all those other things. This is the stuff that needs talking about first. So get yourself a sheet, of which there are plenty on the internet. Just look them up. They're kink lists, just have a look. There are honestly hundreds, and there are loads on FetLife as well. Find the one that's the most extensive and ask the person to tick it, score it. That's one of their first things that they can do as a task. However, as a new dominant or a new top, also write it out for yourself. Look at where you want to learn and what you want to learn. I would argue that the kink scene is amalgamated with and part of, there's a crossover in the middle with the rope scene. However, I would argue that there is a crossover in the middle. The rope scene is also slightly differentiated. And if you want to learn about tying up, you've got anatomy, you've got loads of different people. David ties, you've got Opal Fruit that ties, you've got people here that are really well known for their tying. Speak to them, ask them, talk to them. People are willing to show and to mentor to a certain extent, especially at clubs, and clubs are opening up again. So start to go out, start to meet people. Meeting people is your best bet to learning. It really is. It's so much better than just staying online and not dealing with humans unless you've got live interaction. So get yourself a list. Next thing you need to do is learn how to ask how someone is. I'm a big believer in the Fry's method of consent, and part of that, it means that when we say that, submission is freely given, what does that mean? My mum is so off her face on this medication. It's so interesting to watch someone who's so out of it. It's really hard. I ask her consent all the time. Can I shift your hips, sweetheart? I don't want to hurt you. Just going to lift you underneath. How are we doing? And she'll go, yeah. And then she'll go, ow, no, don't do that. And you're like, oh, I just asked you. But she's so off her face, she can't do that sort of thing. And like even giving her drugs, she'll start crying and say, my head's really hurting. We'll say, okay, I'm just going to draw out 5 mils of oxycodone. Do you want it? No, I don't want it. And then 3 seconds later, you say, are you ready? Shall I put it in your mouth? And she'll go, okay. So drugs impact us. So the sort of drugs that we take are really important. It is day-to-day medication. It absolutely impacts how you feel. It's day-to-day mood. It's our capacity. We need to find out medically and emotionally and psychologically where somebody is when we start playing. And it's kind of a good idea to say, where do you want to go and what do you want to do? So this is all way before we learn how to pick up a flogger. This is crazy, isn't it? This is the basic stuff. So we need to learn how to ask, where are you? How are you about playing today? What's wrong for you? So like my mum's having incredible pain in her side at the moment. So we're like, okay, what's that about? Is that bone cancer spreading? Is it lung cancer blocking her lungs? Is it muscular because how much she's lying down all day? And the answer is you don't fucking know because you've got somebody who can't really tell you. So we just avoid that area as much as we can and we give a lot of drugs. Play is a similar principle without the drugs. So play is a similar principle. You know, should you avoid that area? For me, I've had breast surgery on my right boob. I am psychologically way more sensitive. I'm not sure if my boobs, I'm squishing my own boobs here, sorry, are that different. But psychologically, if you go to grab my right, I go, oh God, that's the one who had cancer. So like find out what the other person has or doesn't have, what they've experienced and how they are. It's also really important to say at that point that honesty is really, really important. If you don't tell me and I do something wrong, then you and I are going to have some issues because it will create issues. So finding out about that is also fundamentally important. So we need to ask psychologically if somebody's okay, what their mental health is like, what medication they're on. Hey, if you want to be a really good top, learn how to deal with a panic attack. I've got writings written on this stuff, you know, already. Learn how to deal with somebody who's in a really stressful situation. Again, my mum is a good example. Got called out this morning. My dad's like, oh God, I've got a phone echo, which is the hospice service. She's not okay. And I went in and sat with her and I just very gently stroke her head and her hair. And she starts moaning. And I sort of said, what's up, sweetheart? And she said, it's really, really hurting my rib, my sides. And I said, okay, should we get you some meds? And she went, no, I don't want any, I can't think. And just gave her a second, calming her down. And I said, you ready for your oxy? And she said, yes, please. Gave it to her and really stroked her head calmly. She just fell asleep. The best I can hope for at the moment is she sleeps through a lot of this. That's the best I can hope for. Understand your medication. Understand someone's psychology. Do a little bit of a think about it. So Zoe says, each time myself and Cosmic do rope suspension, he's aware I have issues with my hips and my right knee, and he checks if anything is hurting, if I haven't told him that something is. I've always liked the thought that he puts into making sure I'm okay and what he can do if he still wishes to do rope and it's comfortable. Yes, exactly that. And keep checking. People think it ruins the mood. It doesn't. If the person's out of it, you need to be conscious of it. So understanding where someone goes sometimes, we talk about subspace, but there's also top space. And that's when people get into a different heightened chemical response.
It's also, I mean, from a purely selfish perspective, if I want to play for a long time, checking in with the person means that that's going to happen. Now,
I agree.
Because it's like we all want to enjoy the moment and extend the experience. And part of the cost of doing that is actually the communication and check-in.
Right, so constant communication, really important. A simple hand squeeze doesn't interrupt things, asking tends to. I think it depends on the person, and I think it depends on the way we ask as well. So hand squeezes can be really good. There are little signs that we can use, like dropping bouncy balls that light up, dropping keys that are really handy, especially if someone is gagged or blindfolded. And the other thing I'm going to say is please work up. Don't go straight into, I'm going to carve my initials into your ass, watch me, and not know how to use a scalpel, which is what a lot of people do. We go way too fast. Or we try some incredible suspension, and it's like, you've never tied someone before? Why on earth are you trying a fucking suspension? You don't know how to spread the weight on their body evenly, safely, and carefully. The sound has gone on YouTube, apparently. I don't know why, David.
Okay, just give me a second. I might have to just...
the sound has gone on YouTube, apparently. I don't know why, David. Oh, now I'm echoing with myself, so that's definitely something.
That was me checking the sound is back on YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, oh, I can hear it on YouTube. It's back. So, again, as Belfiore1 says, or Belfiore, asking can be very sensual. A whisper in the ear is very gentle, isn't it? And again, like my mum's a really good example. Strange, isn't it, how we can find examples from our current lives. I know when I was little, my aunt, when we were staying over there, because we would go to Switzerland for 6 weeks every year, and they speak German and Swiss and French. That's what you had to learn if you were with them, and some Italian. And my aunt would very gently, as we said goodnight to her, say, Bonne nuit, dors bien, je t'aime. And she would always say it. And it was this little thing that we did, which means good night, I love you, sleep well, or the other way around. And then, you know, so like when I'm saying goodnight to my mum at the moment, I'm very gently whispering that in her ear, and it always makes her smile. Gentleness is also really effective. It's really good. We can also be fierce in it. Tell me what that feels like. You fucking whore, you bitch, you cunt, you worthless piece of shit, or whatever, depending on the humiliation someone wants. That can work too. So what that shows is psychologically, we also need to get to know the person that we are with. That's really important. What floats their boat? What limits are there? When someone says, I like humiliation, you might be able to turn around and say, you worthless cunt. But if you say, you fat bitch, that person's likely to punch you. You can call me a fat bitch. I know other people, if you call them a fat bitch, they're going to hit you. You might be able to say, you small dicked worthless piece of shit. And that person might really get turned on and get a hard on from that, whether the other person will say, well, that's it, you just ruined my life. So understand psychologically the things that you can do that people are into. So that's quite a list so far. I'm going to give you my secret to the best form of dominance ever, right? Seriously, this is my personal thing. If you want to know how to handle someone, once you've done all of that, the first task you turn around and you ask your submissive to do is write me a manual as if for the perfect topping that you want. I want to understand you completely. I want you to write out your submissive manual for me as a top. That will include day-to-day activities. That will include playing. That will include when we're together, when we're at a club. Write me your manual. And I want a chapter a week. And I really want to understand, but it's got to be clear and specific as to what would be the best way for me to top you so that you would feel utterly heard, attended to, and everything else. I'm not saying I'm going to do it. However, we will then negotiate what works for both of us. If you want to know how to top someone, fucking ask them. They will tell you. A, it's a task. They will absolutely love it. And B, they're giving you everything. It's so easy. If you are a submissive, write your fucking manual anyway. And then when you meet the person, say, by the way, as a task, sir, master, daddy, whatever, I don't know if I was supposed to have done it, but one thing I really like, this is my personal secret to excellent topping and excellent bottoming. Don't tell everyone, it's a secret. Oh, fuck, it's out there. Never mind. Right, so is ask the person to write a manual. How simple is that? I'm going to have to put that on FetLife before everyone else does now, because now it's out. Right, honestly, if you ask somebody for a complete manual on you as a human being, so I want an introduction at the beginning into your life. Tell me a little bit about your history. Tell me about why you got into this. Tell me about your family. Tell me about you as a human being before we even get into you as a submissive or a bottom. So your introduction is all about, hey, my name is Deb. I'm 55 years old. I'm the eldest of two daughters because I've written mine. I don't give it to many people. I'm the eldest of two daughters. My life is such that I have had a major divorce. I've got 4 daughters. I've been into kink since I was 17. So the kink's a little bit there. My major memories, these are the things I like. I've actually, part of it you can see on FetLife under my personal profile says these are things you need to know about me as a human being. Men don't read the manuals. Well, if they don't, leave them. It's quite simple, isn't it? If somebody isn't willing to put the work in, don't fucking get them put their fist in your ass. It's as simple as that for me. If somebody doesn't read, fuck off, right? You know, and look, if somebody isn't into doing anything like this and isn't into it and just wants to put their cock inside you or just wants you to put their cock inside them, nah. The answer is simple. It's a no. That we facilitate these people to carry on just to have sex or some casual play. If you want sex and casual play, fucking have a fantastic time. However, how often I see people say, oh, okay, because that's what you want. Nah, it's well beyond me. So this is a really good task. Get your person to write their own manual. Ask them to write it out. And if someone turns around and says to the top, well, you should know what I want. I said, fuck me. And I will say this, if I do what I want to you, regardless of consent, that doesn't make me any form of top or dom. In fact, I'll just be breaking the law and I might be guilty of many things. If you think that, you either need to think that through and come back to me in a couple of weeks, or I'm not playing with you. That's it. I'm not going to. I love reading a good manual or how-to guide. Exactly. If we understand it, it works better, doesn't it? If my ice machine isn't working and I'm pissed off at it and I want some fucking ice cubes, me thumping it isn't going to work. If I understand that I need to press a different button and I get my ice cubes back, I'm really happy. Same with submissives, same with tops. As a top, you could also write your own manual of what you love, of how it works, of what you like doing, and of why. Honestly, this is my biggest secret for me. I don't often say it really is. Get people to write their own manual and how to. And once you've got that, slowly but surely, you can also see where you meet that person. For example, I will say to you in my manual, I don't particularly like a rattan cane. If you want to punish me, a rattan cane is going to be a better idea. I love a metal cane. I specifically love a metal cane if I'm twisted on my side, my hips are open, and I'm holding my nipple, and you're smacking the fucking hell out of my left hip, and it's black and blue. Yes, please, I would love that. But that wouldn't necessarily be a punishment. Punishment maybe for me needs to be something that I don't quite like, that I'm not too keen on, so it puts me off doing it again. That's the point. But we are supposed to be consensual. We are supposed to work together on this. And then book yourself up for some classes, get involved and start practicing. Watch some YouTube videos, buy some stuff. However, I'm also going to put proviso in here. Please go to people that make decent stuff and make it themselves. Don't buy a cheap piece of shit from China, from Love Honey, from anywhere else. Go to people that are like at LAM and other places who are creative, who make this stuff, who use it. Because if you find stuff, what you'll find is that the weight is better on them. People who play and make have a completely different idea to just buying a crop just because it's from 50 Shades of Grey that's got no balance in it, that doesn't work particularly well. And again, as is said, support your local community. Let's buy locally. Let's buy from people who play with this stuff and understand it and say, well, I did this and I thought it's because, and they're inventive as well. And you can go to them and say, I'm not so keen on this with the weight. What do you think about it? And they go, I can make that. I can do that. That would be lovely. And as King Pet says,
I'd say there's a LAM love that. They love that kind of feedback.
They do, don't they?
They really will work to make whatever you want.
I've got stuff that's 30 plus years old in my cupboard. I've been practicing for 39 years in a couple of months. 39 years. Woohoo! 40 next. I'll also tell you how to keep it. Please keep toys well. I don't have, ages ago, I wrote this really extensive piece on how to clean and keep your toys. It didn't get that much attention, which is fine. But honestly, you need to learn how to keep your own toys. I would also argue, as a sub, buy your own toys. Honestly, I really would. They're for you, for your fluids. They're bonded to you. That's the way they are. Have your own wardrobe of toys or cupboard or shoebox or whatever it is. It'll grow. Trust me, it'll grow and grow. Have your own toys as a sub because they're your fluids. They're your bits and pieces. And one thing that King Ket says, like, so just in itself, that instruction is a great way to start as a Dom. Write this chapter or else. However, this is the other thing I'm going to say. Please, if you are a dominant, promise less, deliver more. If you promise all of this and you set expectations really high and you never live up to it, you are going to end up in trouble because you're going to get permanent disappointment. It's not a good idea. So psychologically, so if you're learning how to do one thing at a time, don't overpromise and say, well, I'm going to tie and suspend you next week and flog your cunt with this. If you can't tie someone up, why the fuck would you do it? Like, don't do it. So under promise, over deliver. Really good form of dominance. Trust me, because most of us are used to people that do exactly the opposite. I'm all of those things. Are you? I'm a god with my huge dick. That's not you, Cosmic. This is actually someone else recently. I'm a god with my huge dick. Are you? Because I didn't come once. So, you know, you're not. And you did, like, so for fuck's sake. And I really love playing. Did you? Because you didn't look at my toy cupboard once. Luke says, so Belfiore says, I have all of my own. Lee agrees with you, buy cheap. Luke says, I love the manual ideas, can be very descriptive and can always add to, exactly, as opposed to trying to continually dropping ideas or hints. We're all up for adaptation, most of us are. Zoe says, I have my own toys, impact toys and sexual toys. I'm more comfortable playing with things I know are mine. Yep, I agree with you. Sing Counsellor, I've lost custody of 2 prof boxes. My current one is mine. I agree with that. Cosmic arranged for me to get another one. I lost one in a divorce as such, yeah. And Belfry says, oh, that's awesome advice. Thank you. So those sort of things are very...
Sorry, the other thing about us going somewhere like LAM is it's a huge variety of stuff. You go to Ann Summers, you go to Love Honey, they may have 4 floggers. LAM's got 50 or 100 or 200. And different, and like cuffs, for example. A cuff isn't a cuff. Do you want a leather cuff? How wide do you want it? Do you want it fur-lined? Do you want latex cuffs? All these were on display yesterday.
Yeah, and do you want cuffs that don't cover the nerve point as well if you want to be suspended above? So you need different cuffs for different reasons. So like you can buy cuffs that are meant for door holds and all sorts of things. So this is a question of just you getting to know your stuff. Yes, you can read a book. Most books are pretty old. I think a lot of things have changed, and there are some basics and there are some fancy books out there that I still love and still read. You can get a lot of them and they can be great, but take everything, please, with a little pinch of salt and find out what it is you want to do for you. Because as Jerry says, there's so much out there. It's huge. And as King Ket says, the manual can have appendices added as the relationship progresses. Yes. So you want chapters on relationship, on control, on communication, on psychology, on kink, on all sorts of things. Go through it. Write your own fucking manual. Honestly, you'll thank me one day, I promise you, because it's really easy to present to someone. Don't give them the whole thing. It can be thousands of words long, but a little bit at a time. Somebody says, what about this and what about that? You can say, oh, I've got that written down. Can I show you? Can I share it with you, please? And they'll go, yes, that's so much easier, rather than, oh, I've got to ask 500 questions again. Yeah. Yeah. And if with all of this as well, the other thing is that you can have a slightly different manual for play, for relationships, for different things as well. You can amend it and do little things. It's really interesting to write, because the other thing I think you'll find, especially if you're a submissive, and the top actually, I think when you write it, it's a form of personal growth, because it's a form of personal understanding. And it's also really interesting to look back over the years at what I wrote in the beginning, and I think, fuck me, I wouldn't do that nowadays, or yes, I would, or why did I always said I'd never do that, but now I am. We have to allow for growth and change. If somebody doesn't want to write a manual or whatever, they're probably just after instant gratification and play, then you've got to work out, is that what you want? I watched that horrible Netflix documentary the other day about the sexual revolution, and I wrote about it, not particularly, but fuck, it really upset me. It really upset me at the mindset that we are in nowadays about instant hitting on sexual culture and the amount of groping and sexual abuse there is. And it was taken from a couple of years ago, I think 2 years ago, and spring break was still on. And there was a woman raped on the beach in front of 3 or 4 people, and people going, well, that's really nasty. 3 or 4 people were filming. There were thousands of people around. No one did anything. She was completely passed out. And 3 men took turns on her, and they were heard to say, well, she won't remember. It doesn't matter, does it? That's what, like, the culture that we're in of that instant gratification and play and do and sex. Great. If that's what you want, do it consensually, please. Find out. It ain't for me. I don't want that. I want to build up something so I can play a lot more dangerously, a lot more intensely, and do things that I really want to do. And if I've just met you, I am not going to let you choke me. I don't fucking know you. I don't know what you can do with that choke. I don't know how skilled you are. Do you know the difference between stopping someone's breathing and stopping around when you're starting to talking about blood to the brain. Which one are you talking about? Do you know chokeholds? What's the difference? Do you know how to resuscitate me? Have you got 999 or in a different country, a different number, ready pinned in? Like, people die from the shit that we practice. It's really serious. So it's quite horrendous what we see and what's around. Yeah, Zoe, so many people stood and did nothing. It is disgusting and absolutely horrendous. And people just saying it's nasty. But it's an interesting program because it also talks about the social pressure for culture on men and on women, men to be like that and to expect, and women to provide. And it was really interesting to watch it because it goes against a lot of what we're after, really. And it just shows that it's not particularly great. But if you want to go for that, it can be really, really good fun. Just being told can't hear Cosmic on YouTube. Right. So this keeps happening. Royce says, I think it's always useful to get feedback after play to understand. Right. So let me carry on. So that's very important. So what I'm also saying is you could pre-mortem as well as part of your manual to say what could possibly go wrong and what are we going to do about it. Once you've done that in your brain, you'll end up feeling a lot better. Have it during, of course, you have things in your play sessions, like you might have safe words or you might have the red code of green, amber. Please do score sometimes when you're getting to know somebody. Do things along the lines of, that's a 3. Because someone's thinking, oh, fuck me, I thought it was a 6 from your response. You don't know. You're just guessing all the time. And even when you get to know somebody, you know, really get to know them. So scoring can be a really good way. Put it in the manual that sometimes going to tell you that's a 3. Oh, fuck, I thought it was a 1. Shit, bollocks, piss. Or that's an 8. Fuck, I thought it was a 2. Or that's a 2. Fuck me, I thought it was an 8. Jesus, I better up my game. Can I? Do I want to, even as a top? All of those things matter. All really does. Have a post-mortem after your play. Say what worked for you, what didn't. Don't do it immediately. Neither of your heads are in the right place, but set a time up in the week to say, let's have a look. What worked for you, what didn't. Did you come? Didn't you? Is coming part of play? No, it's got fuck all to do with it. Well, that's all right then. But when we have sex, do you want to? Yes, I do. Does penetrative sex matter? Is sex even part of play? Is touching you part of play? Is it out of it in that time? Find out what's okay and what isn't, and then have a look and research afterwards as to how it went and why. The other thing to have is, what is your policy on filming, on digital aspects, on stuff that you've sent that you want it done? And also ask, how do we sort out a problem? Have a plan to sort out, how do we sort out a problem? Do we get someone else in? Do we speak to somebody? Do we just try and do it ourselves? What are we going to do when there is a problem? What are we going to do if our play goes wrong? Because I'm telling you now, if you've been doing it for as long as I have, play sessions go wrong. Ask anyone who's got a lot of experience. Play always goes wrong at some point. And when it does, what we don't want are people to be brandished with the name of an abuser when actually it just was a fuck up, clusterfuck, awful thing that happened. And what we do want is someone being accused appropriately when it has fucking gone wrong and they've just taken the piss and gone against everything that's been said or hasn't been asked. So we want the right aspect of those as much as we can, not that we can police ourselves or sort these things out. So as part of it, really important, it's having your manual that you like to pre-mortem and post-mortem. Also having your manual, your digital, what's your digital code? Mine is, if we break up and I've sent you videos, you're not allowed to show them to anybody else, just fucking delete them. I had a situation at LAM last year where a guy came up to me, hadn't even actually met him, but I had sent him a video because we were talking quite a lot. And my policy is, please delete all videos if we're not going to meet or we don't talk or whatever. I now just don't send videos. It's just put me off again and again and again and again, because my long-term experience is you just do stupid stuff with it, don't you? And he was talking to this really long, blonde, curly, beautiful woman standing by him. And she turned around and she said, oh my God, are you in that video last night? And I said, what video? And his face went, oh, like all the colour drained. And he went, I showed her one of your videos last night. And I looked at her and I said, you really need to think about whether you want to be with him, because actually my digital policy is that everything is deleted. You didn't have a right to watch that and he should never have showed you. I ignored him completely and said, I will have a word with you afterwards. And he scuppered and left LAM really quickly. However, as Lady Lilith said, you can't control other people's behaviour. However, you can have an agreement as best you can. I also think it's really important, and this is now going to take us into the second topic, right?
And of course Jerry popped up there in the moderating in that session, and one of the things that I would specifically encourage people who are new to kink and exploring kink is to look up Jerry's workshop on the art of asking. At the end of the day, it's such a simple thing, but it's a skill that's so often overlooked. One of the next people that I asked was Andrew, who grew up in a lifestyle household. He's been basically on and around the scene all of his adult life, and his advice, I think, is very poignant.
One of the things I'd like to offer up as advice for those in the scene or starting out on the scene is to trust yourself, be honest with yourself, and hold on to boundaries, because I know that I've experienced times where not necessarily boundaries have been overstepped, but red flags have come up, whether it be someone not taking care of their own mental health, or being draining to my own, or not willing to understand and accept mine. And it's eventually come to bite me back on, and eventually hurt me, where I could have stopped and said to myself, this is going to be a problem, this is going to be an issue. Are they ever going to change? If not, then it may need to end here. It's not always the easiest option, it's not always the easiest way to do it, but sometimes for your own mental health, your own happiness, you may need to end a relationship or end a friendship even, because of any of these problems. And it most of the time comes down to the honesty and belief in yourself that you are right, you're doing what's right for you and what you need to do to get by. I do believe and honestly know it's not an easy decision to make, but it's a step that I think we all need to take at some point. Otherwise it will end up having a detrimental effect on you, and sometimes you need to make sure that you'll be okay, and you'll be happy in the long run.
And that kind of leads me on to some of my personal top rules. Number one, it kind of goes without saying, but like all activities, no one cracked out of an egg fully experienced in this. Lots of people may seem to claim it, but realistically, come on, like every skill, it takes time to take the foundations on board and build up. Second big thing, set your own boundaries while still at home and maintain them until you return home. At the end of the day, going out and exploring, it's awesome, but don't get swept along with it. Don't get that sub frenzy. Don't get that domitis. You know what? Be sensible, okay? Because you can always go out another time with the sole intention of ticking those things off your list, but if you go home and have regrets, you can't really take that back. If you want to play, take the time to learn to communicate with people, and the more complex the play, the more you want to push things, the more you're going to have to flex those skills of communication and enhance things up from there. It kind of goes without saying, but there is no prize for doing things the fastest. But you know what? There can be some quite horrific consequences of rushing things and getting into things before you were ready to do so. So be mindful of that when you take your steps forward. Don't push yourself into doing things that are beyond your comfort zone. And you know what? Also, don't be one of those people that attempts to coax people beyond their comfort zone. There are a number of people who, over the years, it probably wasn't considered to be that much of a problem. But nowadays, you know, on hindsight, the pushy people, they're probably not the ones that readily take no as swiftly as they should. So be mindful of that. If someone's trying to encourage you to do things that are beyond your limits, then just take that as a red flag, as it were. And also, we all change. and therefore you need to expect that you will have some adaptation in the people that you play with, the relationships that you have. Some of my relationships have been going on for 12 years. We are both very different people now to where we were, but we still have very strong connections. In one case, I'm on a completely different continent, but that's how circumstances have taken things. We still are in regular contact, and we still have that connection and that bond in place. Remember, things should always be enjoyable. Yes, they can be challenging at times, and I'm not saying that anyone really is going to necessarily love that punishment correction or that impact play session. But at the end of the day, the balance of your perspective should always be positive, and that you're doing things for the right reason, that there is some enjoyment in there. And at the end of the day, the more advanced the play, the more clear you need to be with all aspects of it. Clear with what you're doing, what you need to do if there's a problem, clear with the communication with the people that you are engaging with. And just, you know what, at the end of the day, you wouldn't go out and buy yourself a new pair of trainers and enter the marathon the week later. These things require a build-up, and you need to be sensible with that. So there are lots of different types of events out there that are well worth exploring. Probably the most populous of all of them at the moment, you know what, we'll see how things are when they unlock, got to be Munches. Now, technically these are supposed to be an open space that are often held in pubs and should be as welcoming to everyone as possible. Now, increasingly there are themed Munches, there are subgroup Munches, so please be careful, look at the listings, see what the nature of the event is, because the person who organises it, they kind of set the rules outside of, you know what, only the landlord can bar someone from a public house unless it's a private room. Simple as that. So they should be the gateway places that people first seek to attend. But you know what, like everything, when you go to a restaurant, don't necessarily expect to fall in love with the first place that you go to. The menu might not be right, the ambience might not be what you're looking for. You know what, there are some nights when those banging TGI Friday nights just aren't what you're looking for. So shop around, look what's available, try things. If you can, try them at least once, twice. You know what, it might be the third time when other people turn up that make that evening enjoyable. There's a significant network of shopping and social events such as LAMchester, Swamp down in Bristol. Great places that you can meet the people who actually make the items, the quality items that we like to play with. Workshops, there are a lot of them. There's been an awful lot of content generated on Zoom and various video conferencing platforms over the last 12-18 months. But please understand that not everyone is a great teacher, not everyone is a great communicator, not everyone is doing things for the right reasons. And also, it's very important to understand how you learn. At the end of the day, I've seen far too many people get frustrated because the teacher has a particular style, they have a learning adaptation that is different, and the two things just don't match together. Whereas taking things from a less formal and a more visual process would be helpful to those people, and they pick up those skills faster. So look at how you learn and integrate that. Finally, you know what, clubs. But as I said, like all restaurants, not all menus and interiors are going to appeal to everyone. So it's very important for people to do their homework, particularly before you book, and look for transparency, the rules, the policies, and also look at the kind of people who are making the recommendations. Because you know what, if someone's all about dressing up and they're all about the pretty people and they might like the odd disco biscuit with their music, then their recommendation is going to be based on what they enjoy, and that's not necessarily going to be what you're looking for an evening out. So really spend the time, look at things, because you know what, you want those experiences to be bright, to be colourful, to be enjoyable. You want them to be in the appropriate environment for the kinks that you wish to explore. As simple as that. And I'm not saying every club and event needs to be wrapped in cotton wool. There are some people out there that prefer a more seedy and dark environment, somewhere a little bit more sinister, and they have every right to access that, as long as it's very clear what type of event you're walking into, because the last thing you want to do is to go out for a nice family day out with your extended age play family, only to find yourselves in a dark and dingy, sweaty latex dungeon where the lube is splashed all over the walls. So please be sensible, okay? Just because it's fetish, it doesn't mean it's going to apply to you at all times and under all circumstances. So here we go, some final advice. Like all communities, some people are around for a short while, some people are around for a lot longer. It really does depend what you want to get out of things. At the end of the day, you get out of things what you put into them, particularly when it comes to play. Anyone who's honest about their skills will tell you how long it has taken them to develop them. And trust me, no one got into kink and 2 or 3 weeks later was doing the most amazing suspension. These things take time to build up, to get the basic foundation skills in. If you want to get to that level, then you'll need to dedicate the time to do so. We're often reminded that to call yourself an expert in something, you have to do it full-time for 5 years or part-time for 10 years. At the end of the day, is anyone honestly claiming to be doing kink for 20 plus hours a week, the equivalent of part-time? No, I don't think that that's the case. So let's be a little bit sensible in this. We all may have different levels of skills. Some of us may be very good at certain areas, but at the end of the day, expert, ooh, it's probably a little bit of a bold claim for most people to be making. We're all responsible for our own safety and well-being. At the end of the day, the buck stops with ourselves, because there's always going to be an opportunity to have said, no, I'm not comfortable with this, it's time to leave this environment. And it's important to be able to listen to those voices, and when you don't feel comfortable, have that exit strategy that you've pre-mortem and get out there so that you are comfortable to return another day. At the end of the day, not everyone is looking for the same things, and frankly, some people, well, they're just cockwombles. There's not a lot you can do about it other than be aware of it and to avoid them in the first place. So, if you want to have some fun, come out with an open mind. Hold on to your boundaries, particularly the ones that you're comfortable with, and evaluate them on a regular basis as you move forward. We hope to see you at LAM or one of our events soon, and have fun exploring.
Party time.
Time for another book blurb. This is Venus in Furs by Leopold von Sacher-Masoch. Yup, that Masoch gave his name to masochism. First published in 1870, Venus in Furs by Leopold von Sacher-Masoch is a classic romance of tragic eroticism depicting the intense adoration for Wanda of Severin, who desires to become her slave, and of their developing relationship, which reaches a very dramatic conclusion. Internationally renowned femdom artist Sardax has now brought out this famous novella with over 30 illustrations, including 10 sumptuous full-page watercolours, and his own completely new translation from the German. This is destined to be the definitive illustrated Venus in Furs for many years to come. Another book blurb, Lust in the Dust, a collection of stories of post-apocalypse erotica. Post-apocalypse. It's the end of the world as we know it. Peace and plenty are ideals barely remembered. Everything we used to rely upon has crumbled away, and pleasure is something few can afford. Every joy has to be fought for. When all the trappings of a civilized life are taken away, all we can hope to truly call our own are our bodies and our hearts. In the ashes, We make alliances where we can and find solace and humanity in unexpected places, and maybe even a little hope for the future. Lust of the Dust brings together 10 erotic short stories set in times where civilization and the rule of law have crashed and burned.